NeonicVoid Productions presents.
Simmerhage, she's considered the most sadistic and bloodthirsty of the Forsaken, and she was a healer. She was like the most skilled healer. In fact, like she could heal anything save death.
Yeah.
Where other healers would give up on like curing a disease or healing an injury, she would come in and she would effortlessly do it. But then she either committed a crime or something happens where the authorities told her either you surrender to us and bind your power to us or we're going to sever you. So she ran and joined the Dark One instead. Masana, she was actually a researcher, or at least she was trying to become a researcher at this prestigious university back in the day, but they rejected her, saying she would be better suited as a teacher, as a professor instead, which was insulting to her, and which honestly I think is really petty that she joined. And because of that, she joined the Dark One. And Grendel's the slut.
Oh.
We're talking like Cersei Lannister level of slutness, except without the incest.
Damn.
But she was a therapist. She specialized in using weaves, not of like compulsion per se, because like you can't specifically heal the brain using regular healing weaves, but she specialized in a form of like compulsion weaves. So it basically in the same category that helped people with mental illnesses. So she was able to use these weaves to correct the neurodivergence caused by like trauma and other mental illnesses.
Interesting.
So some of the Forsaken were actually like really smart. Agenor was the one who created the Halfmen, Trollocs, Myrddraal, Drakkar, Shadowhounds. He was the one who made them. But yeah, though I will say Moghedien's weaves don't look like spider webs in the books. But I think the reason why they did that is because Moghedien means little spider. Because when she got her name Moghedien, it was in reference to a small species of spider discovered in the Age of Legend. They're tiny, but their bite is fatal.
And welcome to Book Watchers, where we read books and watch shows, and Jacob's gay. Hi,
Gay?
Devin.
Me?
Gay. Gay.
Well, I never. This coming from the Irish faggot himself. Kettle.
I can't argue that. You're right. I can't argue there. Can't argue there. I got. You got.
Anyway, hi. Hello, welcome. If you have seen our videos before, hi, hello, welcome back. If you are just tuning in, you need to like go back at least one episode because because this episode is actually going to be a part 2.
Oh yeah. I was like, what?
Hi, hello. Huh? Yeah, you're going to need to like back out of this video and go to the one before so you can get a proper introduction. But anyway, hello, welcome.
In the description below, you'll see a Linktree link that will take you to all the other podcasts of NeonicVoid Productions I do with my peeps. There's like a ton of them. So go do that. YouTube's also on there too if you want to see the video portion of this podcast and see. I got told to tone it down.
Okay, well, don't worry. Well, he has nothing to worry about because I'll be doing most of the talking this episode.
Yeah, because
I'll be doing.
Yeah, because you are one of those people that just gets the flapping. And it's just. But I love that about you. I really do. I say it all the time. But yeah, welcome to Book Watchers. Cool. We're continuing on the journey through the Wheel of Time series. On book
That
2.
is right. That is right. Last week we reviewed book 1, The Eye of the World. This week we're going to be reviewing book 2, which is called The Great Hunt.
Yay.
Yay. And so far, both books have been adapted as part of Amazon Prime's TV show.
And I have watched them both. Yay.
He has watched them both. I
did.
made sure he watched them, and I
Mhm.
definitely recommend, if you're not really interested in reading the books, which is understandable because there are 14 books
A lot.
in the series, and I'm only halfway through them. I'm currently on book 7, so there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot,
Certainly is.
and hopefully Amazon decides to keep up with it. But part of me, like nowadays, because of how the way budgets work and just a lot of CGI, I don't even think they're gonna actually go like full 14 series for every book. They're probably gonna like take several of these books and condense them, like maybe 2 or 3 books, and condense them into one season, which is gonna be really hard to do because even the shortest book, which is like I think it's book 7, because I thought book 5 was short, but book 7 is a little bit shorter. It's gonna be hard though. It really will be. But anyway, this episode is mostly going to be focused on the book, because for one thing, there's a lot more that happens in the book, and it's very different from what happens in the show.
Yeah.
From some highlights from the show that I will point out, at the end of season 1, and kind of the same with book 1, Rand defeats, quote unquote, the Dark One, Balsamel. But afterwards, he leaves, and in the show, he tells Moraine to tell everyone that he died in the confrontation, and he does this because since it is confirmed that he is a male channeler, he is doomed to succumb to the madness. And as I've explained in the previous episode, the male half of the true source, which is where all channelers draw their power from, the male half was tainted by the Dark One at the end of the War of Power, which was at the very end of the Age of Legends. And this gave birth to the second age, which is called the Age of Madness, or the Breaking of the World, which is when the taint was the male half of the source became tainted by the Dark One, and as a direct result of that, every male channeler begins to slowly go mad. And since Lews Therin, the original dragon, and his 100 companions were at the very epicenter of this event, they went mad instantly. They left Shale Gull, the stronghold of the Dark One, and went on a rampage all across the world, completely destroying what was left of the old civilization, and just broke the world. Land masses were reshaped, oceans dried up, deserts became oceans, like flatlands became mountainous regions, mountains were reduced to rubble. And Lews Therin, when he died, he took his own life by drawing in an obscene amount of energy from the source, which caused him to blow up. And when he blew up, it was basically like a nuclear event, and it was so strong it punched a hole into the earth, creating a volcano.
Damn.
And magma, like molten rock, spewed out, and 3,000 years later, that hole is still there. It's now called the Dragon Mount, and Tar-Valon happens to sit. Yeah, and Tar-Valon, the seat of the Aes Sedai, is now at the base of the mountain. It's a little ways off, but it's like right there. But anyway, because of this, Rand decides to leave, and in beginning of the series of season 2, he started a new life. He's living in the Foregate of Caerhine. He's living out of an inn owned by a beautiful woman named Selene, and he's taken on a job as like a orderly, like a kind of like an attendant, a nurse, at a psychiatric ward, and he does encounter the other male channeler Logain, who was introduced in season 1. Aside from that, there are a few other things that I'll point out later. For the biggest thing that season 2 spoils, and I'm going to go ahead and spoil it here because we technically don't find out about this information until the end of book 3, the beginning of book 4, was that Balsamol, the figure that would appear in Rand's dreams and that would torment him throughout book 2 and even throughout book 3, is not actually the Dark One, but the Dark One's greatest lieutenant, Ishamel. Ishamel was the leader of the Forsaken and the closest one. He was the most powerful of the Forsaken. He was their leader, and he was the closest to the Dark One. Now, the thing about Ishamel was that he was only half sealed away, and because of that, he would go through these sleep-wake cycles of like this dreamless sleep to where where his mind becomes conscious enough to where he can reach out and touch the material world. And Ishamel is what is called a dream walker, so he's able to project his mind into this plane of existence called Teleran Riod, which is basically the dream world. And through there, he was able to communicate with the Dark One's servants, the Dark Friends, the Myrddraal, the Halfmen, and he was able to direct them throughout the millennia. But because of this, it did drive him to a certain state of madness to the point where he actually began to believe that he was the Dark One. So that's why at the beginning of book 1 and throughout 2 and 3, he would call himself the Dark One or just Balsamon. And Balsamon, by the way, is not really the Dark One's real name. His real name is Shaitan, but Shaitan is basically like he who must not be named. But unlike Voldemort, which is more of just like you just get the shivers from saying his name.
Yeah.
Saying the Dark One's real name would actually kind of like bring the Dark One's attention to you, even though he's sealed away. You still get this sense of like malice. Like there's actually a feeling that the Dark One is watching you. So, but yeah, that is a spoiler. We don't actually, in the books, you don't actually figure out that Ishamel is Balsamon until like the end of book 3, beginning of book 4.
Yeah.
Because at the end of book 3, spoiler alert, that is when Rand actually kills Ishamel. And when he kills Ishamel, he realizes that this is just a man. It's not the Dark One. The Dark One is supposed to be this godlike entity. It's not gonna. If he dies, if I actually killed the Dark One, this wouldn't be it.
Yeah.
So, there's a few other key differences. I'll point them out later, but let's go ahead and get started. So, biggest difference. Oh, one more thing before I forget. Another character that is introduced that technically we don't realize that's who she is until like the end of the book and well throughout book 3 and 4 and 5. Selene is not a normal woman. She is actually one of the Forsaken, and she's considered one of the most dangerous of the Forsaken because she is actually the daughter of the knight Lanfear. Yeah. Now, Lanfear, I just want to like give her a base description. She is she's a very powerful female channeler. In fact, she is as powerful as a female channeler can be. So, like I explained in the last episode, every channeler has their own natural levels of strength, but there is a cap to how strong a male and female can get within the true source. And Lanfear is at this very top of the food chain. So she's as strong as a female channeler can get with Sidar, the female half of the true source. And another fun fact, since Lanfear was already, since it was spoiled in season 2 that's who she is, Lanfear was actually the very channeler that created the boar into the Dark One's prison. So I explained in the last episode that a group of Aes Sedai scientists were trying to discover a new source of power similar to the true source, and they did this. And the way that they went about proving their theory and trying to discover this new source of power was by boring a hole into the pattern or into reality itself. But when they did this, they ended up boring a hole into the Dark One's prison. Well, the very Aes Sedai that was leading this expedition was Lanfear herself. So Lanfear is the one who released the Dark One.
Damn.
And that's kind of why that's part of the reason why she took on the name Lanfear as Daughter of the Night, because it was because of her fucky wucky that the Dark One was able to touch the world. Now, when I say release the Dark One isn't actually released from his prison. It's just there's a hole that was bored into his prison.
Yeah.
Now, he will eventually, if the hole is not properly sealed, he will eventually be able to escape, and that's bad. But with that hole, with just the bore itself, he's able to touch the world, influence it, darken it, and turn people to his side and manipulate people.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the story. So, like I said, Rand left and started a new life in Karaheim. That doesn't actually happen in the book. Now, he does have plans. He did make plans to leave the group and just travel the world, stay on the road, try to keep to himself and stay as isolated as possible. And while he convinces himself that he won't touch the source, on some level he accepts that as a channeler, the temptation is just too great, and he'll eventually begin using it more and more until he succumbs to the madness. So his plan was to leave Faldara in the borderland kingdom of Shinar, and just go off on his own, leave Moraine, Egwene, Nynaeve, Perrin, Mat, leave them all behind.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't get the chance because he's at this point 2 months had passed since the confrontation with the Forsaken at the Eye of the World, and Rand had begun training how to use his father's sword under the tutelage of Lan, Moraine's warder. And he is slowly making his preparations. He's getting supplies together. He's just trying to find the right moment to slip away, because although Moraine at this point hasn't really spoken to him or done anything, if anything, she's kind of been avoiding everybody, he still knows that she's going to try to keep him there, try to manipulate him. So he wants to try to find a good time to slip away. But before he can do that, the Lord Angomar and Moraine announce that the Amerlin seat herself is coming to Faldara. So the Amerlin seat is the leader of the Aes Sedai. She's at the very top of the Aes Sedai chain of command. And the current Amerlin seat is a woman named Siuan Sanchi.
Yeah.
Now, in the show, Siuan is introduced in season 1, and she does make her appearance in season 2.
Mm.
But in the books, Siuan is not actually introduced until book 2. So, main reason why Siuan herself is leaving Tar Valon and coming to Faldara herself is because she received word from Moraine of everything that's happened, the encounter with the Forsaken, finding the Horn of Valyr in the Eye of the World, as well as finding the broken seal on the Dark One's prison there. And all of this is concerning enough that she needs to address it herself. So she arrives in Faldara. When she arrives, Rand decides this may be a good time to just dip, because everyone will be distracted with the Amerlin's arrival. But when he tries to leave the city, he notices that the guards, the people guarding every major exit and pretty much any way out of the Fortress City, they've all received orders. No one is to leave the city. So no matter where he tried to go, Rand could not get out. Eventually, the Amerlin seat, she meets with each of the 3 boys, Mat, Perrin, and Rand, to talk to them, because these boys are all very important. She learns about Mat's condition, and she actually the Amerlin actually makes plans to with the gathered Aes Sedai at Faldara, they were going to go ahead and heal Mat and separate him from the dagger that he had foolishly taken from Shadar Logoth. But we're going to get to that. They don't get a chance to do that. And I'll tell you why in just a second. She finally meets with Rand. And with Moraine by her side, the two, it's revealed that Moraine and Siuan have been working together secretly for over 20 years, because the day that Rand was born was actually the last day of the Aiel War. It was the day the Aiel War ended. And just a quick recap: the Aiel War was a massive conflict between 3 of the Aiel clans from the Threefold Lands against the kingdoms of the Westlands. And those kingdoms lost because the Aiel are just that badass, because the Aiel, really, they wanted to kill the king of Caerhine, the last king of Caerhine, because he cut down a tree that was given to Caerhine by the Aiel. And this tree was important because it was a sapling of the Avendesora, which is the Tree of Life. It's a very important, culturally significant tree, and to the Aiel, cutting it down to make it into a throne was a huge slap in the face and a big insult. So they waged war just to kill that one guy, and they do. But the day they kill him was also the day that Rand was born. And when Rand was born on the slopes of the Dragon Mount, Siuan and Moraine, they were still accepted. They were just about to be raised to the rank of full Aes Sedai sisters, and their mentor was a Aes Sedai who had this rare ability of the sight. She would have foretellings, and real quick, let me get her name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, when Moraine and Siuan were still just accepted, they were on the very last day of the Aiel War. They were attending the then Amerlin seat, Tamra Ospenia, and her keeper of chronicles, Gitara Moroso. That day, Gitara had she's the one who she was the one who had foretellings. She foretold that at that very moment, the dragon had been reborn on the slopes of the Dragon Mount, which wasn't very far away. And because of how powerful that foretelling was, she died.
Dead.
So
a corpse.
Yeah, it was just like she had a moment of she was blind. Her foretelling were so strong that when she was born,
oh, that's right.
she was blind. She was blind.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is, I mean, not really much of a hindrance. She could see much more clearly than normal people who can see. But that foretelling was so powerful, she was just like, the dragon is reborn on the Dragon Mount.
That's right. I remember seeing that, yeah. In the show, anyway.
Yeah. So she died, and Siuan and Moraine made a pact that they would seek out the dragon reborn and guide him, so that way he would have the best chance of leading them to victory during Tamar Gaiden. And they tell Rand, both Moraine and Siuan tell him this. They tell him that they predicted the day he was born, and Moraine did some searching not long after that, and she discovered that a soldier a soldier that had been serving in the Andor army who was also a blade master, had found an infant on the battlefield, half frozen to death. And she tried to track this soldier down, but by that point he had already been sent home, and she wasn't able to find out much information. So for the next 20 years, Moraine spends much of her time out of the tower, searching for Tam Althor, the man who found Rand as a baby and took him to the Two Rivers. she eventually finds information about him and how him and his wife took their adopted son back to the Two Rivers, and that's where she eventually ends up, and she finds Rand, Perrin, and Mat. The thing is that what Nynaeve was really upset about this because she didn't realize that she had given this little piece of information away. But when Nynaeve was about 6 or 7 years old, she does distinctly remember the Althors coming back to the village, and with them they had a small baby. So she knew that Rand was not born in the Two Rivers. She didn't know he was adopted. So when Moraine finds this out, this leads her to further believe that Rand is the Dragon Reborn. But then at the events of the Eye of the World, it all but confirms that he is who he is. So they tell him right then and there that he is the Dragon Reborn, and that he is to lead them all in the fight against the Dark One at Tamar Gaiden. Now, at first, Rand rejects this idea. He tells him, like, he admits that yes, he is a channeler, but he doesn't ever want to channel again, and he has no interest in being a pawn in their schemes. But sometimes the best form of manipulation is pretending that you're letting the one you're manipulating do what they want.
Yeah.
So Siuan and Moraine tell Rand that we're not going to do anything. We're not going to take you back to Tarvalon. You're free to do what you want, what you wish. We're just letting you know that we're just letting you know that when you do accept your role and everything, we'll be here to support you. So they basically let him go and tell him he's free to go and do whatever he wishes. Not long after this, see that right now there's when the Amyrlin's seat arrives in the city, she arrives with about like 20 other Aes Sedai sisters. So this city is filled to the brim with Aes Sedai, including a certain red sister named Liandrin.
That bitch. Ugh.
She wasn't. So Liandrin was introduced in season 1 of the Wheel of Time show, but in the book she wasn't introduced until book 2. And her personality is, she's very stuck up as an individual. She looks down on anyone that's not a woman. She thinks men are useless and have no real use, have no real purpose. And I say she's stuck up because she always has her nose in the air. She's always looking down on everyone, and sometimes even her own sisters. And Liandrin, we see that even before, like, if I had not watched the show and already known that she was a Dark Friend, because spoiler alert, Liandrin is one of the Black Aja. I could already tell this chick was shady as hell, because in the book, when she actually tries to question Rand, because Siuan and Moraine keep it a secret that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, and she tries to get Rand to tell her what he discussed with the Amyrlin. And when she does this, she uses a weave of spirit to try to compel him to tell the truth, which is a little trick she figured out. Which is like many of the Aes Sedai, they have their own little tricks that they figured out how to do as a novice, something that they may not have shared with their teachers or with anybody else. And Liandrin's trick was using a weave of spirit to compel people to do what she wants. It's not always effective because she never really developed this ability beyond that, but she tried to use it on Rand, and Rand, being very strong-willed, resists her, and she's frustrated, but leaves it as is. Not long after this, the city comes under attack. Dark Friends actually manage to sneak in some Trollocs and Myrddraal, and they attacked the city when everybody had their guard down. A lot of people died, but the Faldarans, being a warrior society, quickly rise up and fight back. The contingent of warders that came with their Aes Sedai fight back as well, and the Aes Sedai also help and support in their own way. The Aes Sedai, because of their 3 oaths, can't actually get directly involved in conflicts, even when it comes to... Wait, hold on, back up. So when the three oaths, they cannot use the weapon as a power unless it's an extreme self-defense or in the fight against the dark. So of course they use their power to help fight back. Maybe not in the flashiest way because they're in a city, but they do help. And at the end of the battle, they also use their power to heal the injured. So casualties was a lot less than what was expected. But in the aftermath of the battle, they do realize that it was really just a distraction because in the dungeons of Faldara, excuse me, in the dungeons of Faldara, they had actually captured one of the Dark Friends, and it was none other than Padan Fane. Padan Fane was had made several appearances in Book 1. I didn't really talk about him much because he was really just a footnote. He did cause problems for them, and he was eventually captured by the Shinerans and imprisoned in Faldara. Thing about Padan Fane was that he was tortured and enchanted by Balsamon to seek out Rand and his friends. And when they captured him in Faldara, they locked him up. But when the Trollocs attacked, they released him, killing the guards. And when he escapes, he actually manages to attack Matt and steals Matt's. He steals Matt's dagger, and he also steals the Horn of Valir, which was currently being kept in Faldara until the Aes Sedai could take it away. So it is not only the theft of Matt's dagger, but the Horn of Valir that sparks what is called the Great Hunt. And that's really this is really the focus of the story. Is throughout most of the book, they are focused on finding and retaking the Horn of Valir.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, getting Matt's dagger back because since he's still connected to the dagger, he will slowly waste away and die. And the Aes Sedai were supposed to kill him, but they weren't able to do that before it was stolen.
Yeah.
So Lord Angomar, as well as the Amerlin Seat, they tell Rand and his two friends, Matt and Perrin, to go after it. Because the thing about the Horn of Valir, its power allows anyone who blows it to summon the spirits of ancient heroes of legend. Heroes like a man named Arthur Hotwing, a huntress named Brigitte and her husband, and there's dozens of other there's supposed to be 100 spirits that can be summoned, that are summoned from the horn when you blow the horn. I can't name them all because not all their names were named, and I can't remember every one of them, but Arthur Hotwing and Brigitte were two that stood out, mainly because Arthur Hotwing is a legendary figure that managed to conquer all of the Westlands about 1,000 years ago before he was overthrown by the Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
And Brigitte was a hunter, and she's actually a character that appears and becomes becomes important several times in the next few books. Won't go any further than that. But yeah, the thing about the Horn of Valir, though, is that it doesn't matter who blows it, someone who fights for the light or someone who fights for the dark. Because if you blow the horn, whoever blew the horn is the one who can control those spirits. So if a dark friend blows the horn, those spirits will be compelled to fight for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important that they get the horn back, because once somebody blows the Horn of Valir, that horn will only work for that one person. At least until they die. So they got to make sure somebody on the light, who fights for the light, blows it.
Yeah.
So that way the horn becomes bound to that one person. So that is the quest that Rand, Matt, and Perrin are sent on. They're sent with a small contingent of Shinerans, including a very foul-mouthed Shineran named Uno. You'll recognize Uno. He's the one with the eye patch with the image of an eye on it.
The one
Angry
that
looking
dies
eye. Well,
in the
in
show.
in the show, he dies brutally when he is executed by a group of people called the Shan Shan, and I'll get to those guys in just a second. But in the books, he's actually still alive. He doesn't. He does not. He doesn't die at the end of the in any part of book 2. In fact, he's still alive even up to book 7. So that is another big difference. But so Uno, along with a full force of Shinerans, led by Rand and his friends, head out from Faldara and follow the trail of Padan Fane and his Trollocs. The thing about Padan Fane, though, is that he's not serving directly under Balsamon. He's just doing his own thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a promise to Rand that he would make every person he cared about suffer, and unless he confronts Padan Fane directly. But since Padan Fane is currently heading west, it has like several days lead on Rand. Wait, hold up, back up. I got the directions wrong. They're actually heading like in a southeasterly direction, because in book 2, cut this part out. I'm getting my thoughts back in order.
That's fine. Take as much time as you need.
So they head more in like a southwest direction at first,
Mm-hmm.
and then cut this part out because I'm just talking out loud. Eventually, they do get the horn back from Padan Fane for like a short period of time,
Mm-hmm.
but then they get stolen again, and they. Okay, I got it.
You got it? Get it.
Yep. So they track the Padan Fane and his forces and down south in a more like southwest of Faldara.
Mm-hmm.
And they come across several villages along the path, and they find that the villages were either abandoned or they were completely killed. They realized that Padan Fane is only allowing his Trollocs to either to just take these people alive, and what they do is they end up eating these people later because Trollocs eat anything. I should also say that Padan Fane has a contingent of dark friends with him, and these dark friends were the ones hidden in Faldara, and they were probably the ones who let the Trollocs in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
In either case, they continue to follow them south. While they're doing this, Egwene and Nynaeve actually travel with the Amerlin seat when she makes her return to Tar Valon, because now it is time for them to start their training as novices in the White Tower. Moraine does not go with them. She actually decides to go do her own thing, and throughout the rest of the book we don't actually see Moraine,
Mm-hmm.
at least not until the very end of the book. I will say this because in season 2 Moraine is somewhat doing her own thing, and she does come back and help Rand a bit, but I just want to point out this is a major difference between the book and the series, is that when when Moraine confronted Ishamel with Rand while he was still sealed away, Ishamel dilled her, which is permanently severing her from the source. But it's later revealed that she wasn't stilled, but in fact she was shielded, and the shielding weave was tied off, so it becomes self-sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the series they hint that stilling, stilling can only be done by like 8 sisters. You need like 8 channelers together to still one person or sever one person. And their weaves, they don't know how tying off weaves is a lost talent. So modern Aes Sedai don't know how to tie off weaves. in order for them to use their weaves, they have to continuously concentrate on it. So, like, if they wanted to shield another channeler from the source and keep them from using it temporarily, they have to continuously focus on that person. But what Ishamel did was he shielded her and tied her off so that way she can't touch the source.
Mhm.
But then later, Rand ends up cutting through the weave and she gets her power back. But that doesn't happen at all in the books. If anything, it's revealed that Nynaeve and Egwene realize and figure out how to tie weaves on their own. So it's not a lost talent. It's something that any channeler can do. It's actually something that any channeler can do. Nynaeve, I'm sorry, not Nynaeve. Egwene actually figures this out on her own in book 3. I thought I'd give you guys the spoilers because sadly the show spoils it for us.
Yeah.
So, but aside from that, they make it to Tarvalon with the Amerlin seat. While they're traveling, they actually travel downriver from Faldara to Tarvalon. And while they're traveling, several of the sisters, traveling with them, begin giving them some lessons. Moraine had started giving them lessons on how to safely channel and do like small things like start a fire, maybe make little witch lights and things like that. The other sisters continue their education, giving them like pointers and things like that. And at one point, Siuan herself gives them a lesson, and it's just really more about just dangers of channeling, different things they could do with it. Egwene is attentive because she left the Two Rivers because she wanted to be an Aes Sedai. All right, she felt that was her calling. Nynaeve has proven to be more combative when it comes to this. She's very frustrated because she can't channel at will. She can only channel when she's extremely angry. Which, honestly, with her personality, which is almost all the time, if you just say the wrong thing to Nynaeve, she's bound to pop off on you. Which the Amerlin seat does manage. Like Nynaeve challenges her, saying like, wouldn't it be like more practical to use the one power to make weapons, like, you know, make weapons out of like air or things like that? And Siuan demonstrates that you can make a weapon out of thin air she creates a sword by condensing air into a solid object. And but like Siuan says that for them it takes too much energy and concentration to continuously hold a weave of air into a solid shape like that. And she says it's better to leave the swordplay to their warders, which they'll get eventually when they become full sisters. And it's better to use it on more practical things, like she shows them that you can restrain. She shows that you can restrain somebody by like condensing air around a person and holding them in place. So it's kind of like a form of telekinesis, but simply by controlling air. And she restrains and pushes down Nynaeve and holds her in place, and this pisses off Nynaeve to the point where she starts channeling, and she actually blasts Siuan across the room with a puff of air.
Damn.
So that's a difference from the show and the book. In the show, it's Liandrin who's doing this, but in the book, it's actually Siuan. But Siuan, like, she's actually impressed with Nynaeve, but she quickly shields Nynaeve, cutting off her connection to the source. And the thing is, Siuan points out that as they are right now, despite how powerful the two of them are, they're still they haven't reached their full potential yet. So any sister on the boat that they're on right now could easily shield them, but eventually they'll get to the point where they're so powerful that a single channeler alone wouldn't be able to shield them. They eventually reach Tarvalon, and Siuan gives the two of them over to the Mistress of Novices, a Aes Sedai named Shiriam. And in the show, Shiriam is I forgot, I don't know the name of the actress, but she looks like a middle-aged woman with all white hair.
Mhm.
But the thing about the Aes Sedai is that they don't really age. Well, they do, but they live for a very long time, and they have what is described as Aes Sedai agelessness. So Aes Sedai, even if they have like streaks of gray going through their hair, their face looks ageless. Like there's no lines, no wrinkles, nothing that really gives away like what age they are. In Shiriam's case, she has fiery red hair and she looks like a young woman, barely older than Nynaeve herself. But she immediately begins putting them through the ropes. As novices, Aes Sedai make novices not only focus on their studies, but they're also put through like a lot of remedial housework. So so the novices are put in charge of cleaning, cooking, serving the Aes Sedai whenever they need them. So like acting as attendants for the Aes Sedai. Well, more like maids, chamber maids, than anything else. When they're raised to accept it, those roles, they don't have to do that anymore. They take on more administrative roles, assist with teaching, and they're able to focus on their studies at their own pace. And they're able to and that's when they begin researching which of the Ajas they want to go into when they go up into, when they reach the level of Aes Sedai. So they do spend a few months in the tower, and it's there that that Egwene and Nynaeve meet another novice named Elaine. Now, Elaine was introduced in Book 1. She is the princess of Andor and daughter and heir apparent of the Kingdom of Andor.
Oh.
Her mother is Queen Morghese, who currently is sitting in the Lion Throne of Caemlyn.
Yeah.
So Elaine had already been there for a short period of time, and when Nynaeve and Egwene gets there, she shows them the ropes a bit, shows them around, gets them acclimated to the life of being a novice, and right at that moment, she and Egwene both realize that they've reached a point in their training that they can now start not only seeing the power flowing through another channeler, but seeing the weaves as well. So when they realize this at the same time, they're just like, huh, we're both on the same level. So Egwene and Elaine are both equal in the power. Which is actually, both the two of them have the potential to be stronger than any of those currently more powerful Aes Sedai, which currently that's Suan and Moraine.
Yeah.
So Moraine and Suan are two of the most powerful Aes Sedai in the tower, but Elaine and Egwene are even more powerful than that. And then you got Nynaeve, who's like up here.
It's all the way up there.
Yep. And I want to take a little moment to step away from these two groups because the story does focus on other characters. Sometimes it focuses on Padan Fain and how he's becoming more mad, but he's succumbing more into madness. He noticed that the Dark One, Ishamel, is not able to really influence him anymore, and he notices that the dagger that he stole from Matt, is not only increasing his power, but it's making him more resistant to Ishamel's influence. So he's able to do his own thing. And he's also trying to figure out what he's going to do with the Horn of Valyr, because he's not going to give it over to the Dark One. He wants to use it for his own purposes. Aside from them, it does go over to a particular smuggler that we actually meet in Book 1, and this very smuggler is introduced in Season 2. Moraine has a brief dealing with him at the beginning of the show. And what? Ma'am, I'm busy.
Ooh. Not the doggo.
Yeah, excuse me. Anyway, so this guy, the smuggler's name is Doman, and Doman is an Ilian smuggler, and it does briefly focus on him for a short period of time throughout the book, because he's actually sailing along the west coast of the Westlands,
Yeah.
and he has an encounter with a foreign fleet. Now, when he first sees, he had actually already been getting rumors, hearing rumors about some fighting going along on an area of, in an area called Toman's Head, and there had been strange reports about foreign fighters wearing strange armor, and also even wilder stories of Aes Sedai helping these soldiers. Which, if everyone in the Westlands know that Aes Sedai don't take part in conflicts or fight as soldiers because their 3 oaths prevent them from doing anything like that. They can't tell a lie, they can't make weapons for which men can kill other men with, and they can't use the one power as a weapon unless it's in extreme self-defense or in the fight of, or in the fight against the Dark One and his dark forces. So if it was just if it was an Aes Sedai in a field full of Trollocs, they can go ham all they want.
Yeah.
But so while he's sailing along the coast, he realizes that he's being followed by a large ship. Think something like a Mongolian style ship with those ribbed sails. And he tries to outpace them and keep to closer to the shallows because his ship is more suited for rivers. But the foreign ship continues to follow them, and at one point, a pillar of fire shoots up from the ocean in front of them, forcing Doman to stop his ship, pull anchor, and allow the other ship to catch up. And his ship is boarded by these strange soldiers in what is described as like bug-like armor. So it's kind of bulbous looking. Their helmets have like these big old like bug-like eyes on them. And when these soldiers board his ship, he notices a pair of women come on board too. One woman is wearing a blue and red dress with like kind of like lightning bolts streaking through it, and this woman is wearing a bracelet, and on the coming out of the bracelet is a silver leash that's connected to a collar that's currently around the other woman's neck. And this other woman is wearing just a plain gray dress, and he's not sure, but he thinks that these women are Aes Sedai, or at the very least channelers, but he's never seen anything like this before. His men, the soldiers don't kill any of his men. They just force Doman as well as the rest of his crew to swear fealty to the Shan Empire. And that's who these people are. Their group is called the Shan. And these 2 women are actually interesting because so the woman in the red dress is called a Sul'dam, and the woman with the collar on her neck is a channeler, and she's what they call a damane, which means collared one.
Yeah.
Now, the Shan have a cultural practice of enslaving channelers. They think channelers are too dangerous to be left alone to do their own thing, and all channelers should be collared. Like, of course, males need to be executed, while females need to be collared. And they do that by using a ter'angreal called an Adam. And the Adam in the book, the way that the Adam in the book is described is just a simple silver collar with a leash coming out of it, and it's connected to a silver bracelet that the Sul'dam wear. When they wear it, they're able to control their damane, the person who's collared. They're able to compel them to start channeling and direct the flow of their weaves. And through the damane, the Sul'dam is able to direct the flow of their weaves. And basically, what the Sul'dam wants the damane to do, be it create a blast of air, shoot a fireball, the damane have no choice but to do it. Now, if you watch the show, same thing is happening, except the Adam is much different. Like, of course, it has the bracelet and it has the collar, but when the collar is put onto the damane, it expands into this like kind of like a metal like
Breastplate thing. Yeah.
kind of like a breastplate thing,
Oh.
and there is no silver leash connecting it to the bracelet. But whenever the Soldam begins to use the Damane's power, you can see like a tether made out of just pure, like a tether of the one power, I guess you could say what it is.
Yeah.
So that shows that that's how they're using. That means that they're controlling their Damane. And when the Soldam is training their Damane, and or if their Damane is acting out or does something that displeases them, a Soldam can actually inflict pain onto the Damane. So if they think like, okay, like if they envision their Damane being whipped by a chain, the Damane will feel like they're being whipped by a chain. Any form of pain the Soldam can think of, the Damane will feel it. Another thing about the Damane is that they can't take off the collar at all. Only a Soldam can remove the collar, but Soldams would never remove a collar from a Damane. And if a Damane tries to grab or take the bracelet away from their Soldam, the Adam will immediately begin to inflict an insane amount of pain.
Yeah.
On the Damane. So the Soldam doesn't have to worry about their Damane running away, because if they try to run away, the Adam will prevent them from running, and it will inflict extreme pain on them. If the Soldam takes off their bracelet and just puts it on a table in front of the Damane, if the Damane just tries to grab it or run off with it, pain. That's all they feel. If the Damane tries to think about lashing out against their Soldam, pain. So it's a very brutal and effective method of controlling these channelers. But back in the story, the Shanshan, after getting oaths of fealty from Doman and his crew, they leave him alone and they direct Doman to go to the city of Falm. And it's there that they're forced to just basically wait. The Shanshan won't allow any kind of trade to come in or out of the city. And slowly the Shanshan are spreading out along Toman's head. They're attacking villages. They're only killing soldiers or people who take up arms, but regular civilians and townfolk, they'll just capture them, force them to swear fealty, and then they'll leave them alone.
Yeah.
So back to Rand's crew. At one point, Rand gets separated from the rest of the group. Rand is with the Ogier Loyal, and I think he has Matt with him. Yeah, he has Matt with him. No, it's not Matt. I'm sorry. Matt stays with the rest of the group. Cut that part out. I'm sorry. So what happens is that while they're making camp, they made camp around an object.
Mm-hmm.
This object is revealed to be a traveling stone. So with this group of Shinarian and the three main characters, an Aes Sedai actually does travel with them, and it's the brown sister Varen. So Varen is introduced in season 2 of the show. She's actually she is used to replace another character that Moraine seeks out in the book. There's a pair of Aes Sedai sisters that retired and they're living on their own. She goes to them, seek out their help, and because they have like a large collection of tomes. So, but that's not really important because there's just like one small scene even in the book. Because Moraine, she's trying to figure some things out, mainly concerning the prophecy of the dragon and what lies in the future of the world, leading up to Tamargarden. And but anyway, Varen Sedai is traveling with Rand, Matt, and Perrin, along with the Shinarians tracking down the Horn of Valyr. She's providing advice, helping them figure out what to do next. But mainly, she's there to observe them because as a sister of the Brown Aja, Varen is a scholar, and the Brown sisters, their goal is to seek out and preserve as much knowledge as possible. Like the library in Tarvalon is the largest library in the Westlands. The only one that can rival it is the library in Karaheim. And what interests Varen the most is that, for one thing, Varen she's one of the few Aes Sedai who knows that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, and she also knows that Rand, as well as Perrin and Mat, are what are called Ta'veren. I didn't really talk about the Ta'veren very much in Book 1, but Ta'veren, unlike normal people who are caught up in the flow and the design of the pattern, Ta'veren actually affect and change the outcome of what the pattern intends. So whereas like the rest of the people pretty much live their lives with little to much choice or like free will, the pattern will dictate whether what's going to happen in their lives. Ta'veren will actually change that. So if you get caught up with the Ta'veren, your destiny, your fate will actually change. And the fact that there were 3 that came from the same village is unheard of.
And that
Varen Sedai is focused on just observing these 3 boys and trying to see like, what kind of effect will the 3 Ta'veren have on the world.
And
but at one point they make camp around an object called a traveling stone. It looks like an obelisk. It's set in like a kind of like a platform of stone, like an octagonal platform of stone. She tells them that it was used by ancient Aes Sedai to study the multiverse. Or rather the idea of other worlds. Like if our decisions lead to this outcome, couldn't it be possible that other decisions lead to other outcomes, right? And these traveling stones were originally used to study that. And by like using the power, they can actually enter these other worlds. But she also reveals that these traveling stones weren't actually created by the Aes Sedai from the Age of Legends, but actually an age older than even the Age of Legends. So this is a remnant from an ancient time that predates even the Age of Legends.
Jeez.
Now, this part is a bit confusing because Rand is not sure how it happens, but while they're camping around the stone, and when he wakes up, he finds that himself, Loyal, and one of the Shineran's trackers have been transported to another world. And they're like, wait, how did we get here? It's hinted later that Rand, in his sleep, accidentally triggered the traveling stone, and they end up in it's not an actual world, but it's like an idea of a world, right? So it's kind of bland and gray, so it's not really like firm or solid, or like really it's not very like tangible. So while they're looking around, there's no people, there's no animal life, there's plants, but the plant life looks kind of weird, like it's not fully there. So the tracker, though, notices that he's still able to follow the scent of Padan Fain even from this world, because the tracker is what the Shinerans called a sniffer. He has a weird ability that allows him to smell. Like his sense of smell is so great that he can actually follow scent trails, and that's why they use him. Because there are other abilities outside of the one power, like dream walking, foretelling, and wolf brothers or wolfkind, which are people that have the ability to communicate with wolves and even control them, which is what Perrin is able to do. So the sniffer tells Rand that they can still track Padan Fain through this world, they're just gonna until they figure out how to get back to the real world. Might as well just keep following the trail.
Yeah.
So that's what they end up doing. But back in the real world, the Shannarans, along with Matt and Perrin and Varen, they're all wondering where did Rand go, and the Sniffer, they don't know where those three went. And without their Sniffer, they were not going to be able to follow the trail effectively. But Perrin, since he's figuring out his new abilities as a wolf brother, he knows that he can track the scent, probably even better than the other guy. So he tells the Shannarans that he can follow the scent too, but he doesn't tell them that about his other abilities, like being able to hear the thoughts of wolves or anything else like that. So, using Perrin's abilities, they continue to track Pat and Fane, and while asking Varen where did they go, and Varen doesn't really say. She doesn't really give them any answers because she, doesn't say she doesn't know, but she doesn't really answer them correctly. But it's implied that she thinks she knows what happened and it has something to do with the Portal Stone. I just want to point out a little something that I noticed about the Portal Stones in the books, as well as the Waygates. It seems like in the show they decided to combine the design of the Waygates with the Portal Stones, because in the show the Waygates look like a pair of pillars where in the space between an Aes Sedai can open a portal into the ways, and from there travel pretty much to an adjacent Waygate over the course of several days, rather than like several weeks or months that it would take to reach that other Waygate in the real world, right? Whereas in the books, the Waygates look like an actual pair of doors that you can open just by removing the carving of a leaf, which is like the leaf represents the leaf of the Tree of Life. So that's how you can open it in the books. And then there's also the Portal Stones, which just look like obelisks, and that a channeler would need to be able to use the power to open it, to be able to use it.
Yeah.
So their group continues to follow the trail using Perrin's ability. They do have several close encounters with, it seems like they're gaining on Pat and Fane, and eventually they realize that he's not that far away. But aside from that, back in this shadow world that Rand and Loyal and the Sniffer are in, they actually come across some animals. These animals are called Grom, and Grom kind of look like these mutated frog creatures. And the reason why they come across these creatures is because they hear a woman screaming and crying out for help. And when they reach her, they find a very beautiful woman wearing a pure white dress. She has a silver chain wrapped around her, like a silver chain belt around her waist. Her hair has a veil of like these stars and diamonds. And Rand describes her as the most beautiful woman he has ever met. They rescue her from the Grom, and she introduces herself as Celine. Spoiler alert, it is
I am
Lent.
listening. I am tuning in, by the way.
No, I'm just like, just hint.
She's serving cotton pussy. That's all she's doing.
Yep.
She's like, I'm Celine.
Hi,
she's from
oh my gosh,
like,
that Grom
X-Men.
totally almost ate me. She doesn't act like that in the book. She doesn't act like that in the book.
Yeah.
Celine,
I'm serving cut.
when Rand first meets her, he mistakes her for a noblewoman, but he notices that she has this somewhat ageless look to her. Because even though she looks very youthful, there's something about her that seems more mature. And several times he does ask her if she's an Aes Sedai. And this kind of irritates her. Because at one point she gives a very snide remark like, I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those people. Right? Like she's clearly showing contempt. And he asks her where she's from, and she says she's from a noble house of Cairhine. And he's like, "How did you end up here?" She's like, I don't know. Shit, I don't know.
What happened? What happened? I don't know what you're talking about. What?
I don't know what you're talking about. So though she does appear to be very knowledgeable about the subject of this world and the portal stones, and she tells him that that's how they got there, and that's probably how they can get out. They just need to find another portal stone, and she even talks about how the ancient Aes Sedai used it to study other worlds. Ow, ow. Just give me a moment. Pinched a nerve in my... Yeah, I was resting my foot on my bed over here, and I pinched a nerve in my pinky toe, and it hurt like a bitch. I was just like, oh.
Wow, you
That
pinched a
happens.
nerve in your little pinky toe?
Yeah, it's fine. A little nerve damage doesn't kill anybody.
You have nerve damage in your pinky toe? How'd you
No.
manage that?
No, I don't. I pinched a nerve, and I was just joking. But anyway, so, and it's because of her. She claims that Celine claims that she knows so much because she studied in the libraries of Caerhine, but Rand is like, let's see, kind of gets a little sus about it, but he takes her at her word, and they do eventually make it to another portal stone. Their journey to find that portal stone in particular had to be expedited because a whole horde of Grom begins chasing them, and when they reach it, Celine tells Rand that he has to be the one to use the portal stone, and she points out that one particular symbol on the portal stone represents their world. Excuse me. And he needs to be the one to open it, because she hints that it was probably him, and he's like, what? What? But how am I supposed to do that? I can't channel. But he can. And she basically gives him this look like, really? Like, don't bullshit me.
Yeah.
So he does manage to draw upon Sidon, and he does activate the portal stone, and by focusing on the symbol representing their world, he transports them back to their world. And the sniffer that was traveling with them realizes that they're actually a lot closer to their to Padan Fain than they originally thought. If anything, he's just over that hill. What they end up doing is that they sneak into Padan Fain's camp, and seeing that the Padan Fain had left the dagger literally on top of the box containing the Horn of Valyr, he just grabs them both and dips. And this pisses off Padan Fain. He's like, because he had a whole horde of Trollocs standing guard, but most of them fell asleep, including the ones keeping watch for the night. And they managed to escape, and they decide to make their way to Caerhine, because they realize that they're not that far from Caerhine.
Yeah.
And because at one point they knew that their group would eventually reach Caerhine. And when they do this, Padan Fain does give chase again, and Rand and his group do eventually reach Caerhine. When they do, that is when Celine decides to dip, and saying that she has other matters she just leaves them with, I have other matters to attend to, and she just takes off. So Rand has no idea where Celine is now. Him and his group stay in Caerhine for I'd say about like a week or two, while they wait for the rest of the Shinerans to catch up to them. And while they're there, Rand learns that the city is deeply embroiled in something called the Game of Houses. I talked a little bit about the Game of Houses in the last episode, but basically it's pretty much like, before you try to cancel me and cancel Robert Jordan, no, he did not steal Game of Houses from a Game of Thrones. If anything, this book is when the Game of Houses was first introduced, and this book was released in like 1990, and a Game of Thrones wasn't released until like a few years later. So no, there's no copyright here. Don't cancel Wheel of Time saying like, oh, they took that idea from Game of Thrones. So if anything, it's the other way around. So check yourself.
Period.
So it starts off small, because Rand had been given some very nice livery, like, you know, fancy coats and dress and clothes from that Lord Engelmar of Shinar gave him. The nobles of Caerhine thought that he was a traveling noble. So it starts off small. The weaker, smaller houses begin sending him invitations, and it's all because they want to use him in some kind of scheme, in some whatever scheme they have to get one up over their next. Okay, so what was I talking about? All right. So Game of Houses in Caerhine. So Rand begins to get all these invitations from these nobles who want to use him in like some form of scheme to get one up over the next noble over, or like their rivals. And Rand wants really nothing to do with it because he doesn't pretend to be a noble, but everyone seems to think he is. And he's even told some people, like, I'm not a noble. All right. But they just look at it, at how he's dressed, and they're like, yeah, right, you're not a noble. You're a shepherd.
Yeah.
So Rand he either ignores or he'll throw away the invitation from these nobles because he doesn't want anything to do with their Game of Houses or be a part of any of their schemes. Eventually, as he's wandering, he decides to like explore Caerhine, and he even explores the Foregate because Caerhine has like its inner city, which is protected by walls and gates and things like that, and outside of it is this like kind of like a shanty town. It's made of all wood and it's crude. It's called Foregate. It's called that because during the Aiel War, and any wars beside it, a lot of Caerhenians, they, in order to escape pillaging and the fights, they would travel to Caerhine, and while they're in Caerhine, they either just refuse to go back to their villages, or they can't because their villages were destroyed. So they ended up building the Foregate, and the problem with the Foregate is that it gets burned down pretty much every time the city is besieged. So it's full of people who really can't afford to live inside the city, or people who can't afford to go back to their homes or their villages, or they just refuse to go back. And this is especially true during the Aiel War, even though Caerhine fell during the Aiel War. So he explores the Foregate a bit, and he actually runs into a character from Season 1, Book 1, that we all thought died, and that is a Gleeman, Gleeman are like traveling bards. This particular Gleeman traveled with his group in Book 1 throughout the first half of Book 1. His name is Tom Marilyn. And Tom Marilyn was thought to have died when they reached Whitebridge, and that was because they got cornered by a Myrddraal, and Tom sacrificed himself so that way Rand and Mat could get away. And Rand was pleasantly surprised to see Tom Marilyn is not only alive, but he's performing in the Foregate. Talk for a bit. Rand offers Tom to travel with him for a bit. Tom initially refuses because he just doesn't really want to get involved with Rand and his group anymore, and also because he's already setting up settling down here. But in either case, he does give Rand some advice, especially concerning the game of houses, because he learns from Rand that Rand has been getting those little invitations, and he tells Rand, just be careful because it's not going to stop. All right, just because you ignore these invitations, you may when you ignore these invitations, you're basically making new enemies. Those smaller nobles can't really cause you much trouble, but if you ignore invitation from the big, the more influential, more powerful nobles, those will be very powerful enemies you'd make. Even if you don't want to have anything to do with them. So Rand takes his advice, but continues to throw away the invitations. At one point, he receives a whole stack of invitation at the inn he's staying at. The innkeeper comes up with a platter stacked high with all these invitations, and Rand, getting so pissed off, he grabs them and throws them in the fire.
Damn.
Yeah, and the thing is that the game of houses is played on all levels, not just the nobility, but also the common people. So the common people in the inn see this, and the way the common people play the game of houses is by selling information to the actual, to the highest bidders. So these commoners are gonna tell all the nobles, are definitely gonna spread the rumor, oh yeah, oh yeah, that traveling noble, yeah, he's throwing away all those invitations. Eventually, though, Padan Fain as well as the Shinerans catch up to Rand, but unfortunately, Padan Fain catches up to him first. So while Rand and Loyal and the Sniffer are staying at the inn, Padan Fain's dark friends, they break into the inn and they burn it to the ground, and they make off with the dagger and the horn of Valir again. And right after they escape the fire, that's when they run into the Shinerans as well as Varen Sedai and Matt and Perrin.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shinerans ask him, did you manage to get the horn of Valir from Perrin? They're like, yes, we did. Do you still have it? No, we don't.
Mm-mm.
It just got pointing to the burnt inn behind them. It just got stolen. For shame. But so now their entire, even though the group has been reunited, they have to figure out how to get the horn again.
Yeah.
So it's then that as they're talking it over, Varen notices that Rand gets another invitation from a noble, from some nobles, but this time the invitations are from the King of Cairhien, as well as the king's greatest rival. So the king and the most powerful and influential of nobles have sent him invitations, and Varen thinks that this could be beneficial to them, because how could the Dark Friends have gotten into the city and gotten out so easily, made off? And how would they have known that where Rand was? I mean, of course, like I said, the game of houses is played in every level. But they do some investigations. They find out that the city gate, the guards at the city gate have been telling, of course, tell everybody where they're going. And they realize that the king's rival, who sent Rand that other invitation, is possibly a dark friend. And they do some more investigation, and they do confirm that he is a dark friend and that he was harboring Padan Fain. And while they're investigating his manor, they also realize that that there is a waygate inside this noble's manor. So somewhere on this dude, somewhere in the garden of this dude's property, is a waygate. And Loyal points that out because he's like, I can feel because Loyal as an Ogier can sense where the waygates are and if they're nearby. So he senses one, and he tells them that there's a waygate nearby, and they realize that there's a reason why Padden Fane went to this particular Dark Friend in general, and that's because of the Waygate. So so taking Baron's advice, they accept that dude's invitation and manage to get an audience with the guy. They exchange pleasantries and everything, and they sneak away to find the Waygate. And they find it, but when they open the Waygate, they immediately see that on the other side is Makan Shin, which, if you remember
Mhm.
from book one, is the Black Winds, which is this parasitic entity that inhabits the ways.
Oh
So
dear.
when they open the Waygate, Makan Shin is right there at the entrance, and they can see that the this mirror-like field, which usually keeps Makan Shin from getting out of the Waygate, is beginning to bulge outward, and it's trying to reach for Rand. So they realize, hold on, sorry. They realize that, oh, it's trying to get out. So they quickly shut the Waygate, and unfortunately, they're not able to follow Padden Fane through the ways. Now, they are not entirely sure where Padden Fane is going at first, but the noble that uh, the noble whose invitation they accepted uh, actually gives them a message from Padden Fane. And Patton Fane basically tells Rand that he has like 2 months to meet him in Toman's Head at the city of Falm and face him directly. And if he doesn't meet him by that timeline, Patton Fane is going to make everyone that Rand cares about suffer. So basically, it's a threat against Eamon's Field, his
Mhm.
family in Eamon's Field. So Rand has to think. He has to think quickly. How can they get to Toman's Head quickly and meet the deadline? And he remembers, wait, there's another way, and that's using the portal stone. And he pitches his idea to Varen, and Varen, who knows a thing or two about the portal stones, she's not entirely sure this will work. But especially because since they have such a large number of people that are going to need to be transported from one portal stone to another one, she herself doesn't have the kind of power to activate the portal stone. But since she knows that he's the Dragon Reborn, she's like, okay, this might work. So they track down the nearest portal stone, and Rand, remembering the symbol that Celine told him represented their world, he finds it on the portal stone, and he focuses his efforts on Toman's Head, on the city of Fall.
Mhm.
And it does work. But the thing is that their journey isn't exactly a pleasant one, because when Rand activates the portal stone, he at first ends up transporting everyone's minds into other realities and other potential like happenings, like what would happen. Like basically, has a total what if moment. Like, what if Rand isn't discovered in by Moraine? What if this? What if that? So like him and the rest of their group end up living out different lives as he's trying to
Mhm.
like get them to go from one portal stone to the next, and
Mhm.
it's it works. They end up at the portal stone at Toman's Head outside of the city of Falm, but when they appear, unfortunately, they miss the deadline, because instead of just disappearing, traveling from one portal stone to the other in an instant,
Mhm.
Ren accidentally transports them 3 months into the future.
Oh wow.
So he missed his deadline by like a month. But it works out because even though Patton Fane did reach Falm, he
Mhm.
he ends up falling in with the Shan Shan. He gives the Horn of Ilir to the High Lord that is currently residing over Falm.
Mhm.
And but the thing is that he underestimated the Shan and their ways. He thinks that they will do things like people in the Westlands do things, but they don't. Like,
Mhm.
for example, commoners don't really have property, and so like commoners aren't really treated as slaves, but they're not treated like people. Your property can easily be taken away whenever, and the high lords and nobles of the Shan are extremely entitled. Like for them, it is their right to take whatever they want, right? So that also includes uh, anything made out of Quindiar, which is Hearthstone,
Mhm.
or other artifacts that come from the Age of Legends. So
Mhm.
so what Paddon Fane was scheming was he was going to try to use the Shan to get at Rand, but the Shan ended up taking over things more than what he anticipated. So Rand decides to like pledge himself to the High Lord, and
Mhm.
I think his name was Turok, High Lord Turok. Cool. So, and yes, if you've watched the show, the nail thing is a thing. So the High Lords of the Shan, as part of their status, to like showcase their status, they um, grow out their nails to about an
Mhm.
inch, and the first two nails on their index and middle fingers, they lacquer them with blue lacquer. So like in the books, they grow out all their nails to like about an inch or so, and from there they lacquer it, giving it that better like to showcase that this is their status and things like that. Whereas in the show, it's just they grow out the nails of their index and middle fingers, but they grow them out to like I would say like about 12 inches. Long old nails. It's supposed to represent their status and their rank.
That swish though when they so good.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah. It was so stupid. I was just like, when I first saw that, I was like, what the fuck? What is that? But when I read the book, it's like it made more sense. Like they don't actually use their nails as like like
Mhm.
they do have like these like hand gestures that High Lords used as a way of like dismissing their servants or like
Yeah.
signaling their like what they need from their servants. But it's not like a whole swish of their nails and things like that.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, so Paddon Fane ends up falling in as one of High Lord Turok's servants,
Mhm.
and he that's why he doesn't immediately go after Eamon Field because he can no longer he realizes like oh he's in too deep.
Yeah.
Uh, but before we continue on, I want to go ahead and take a step back over to our girls in Tarvalon. So
Yes.
so Egwene and Nynaeve became fast friends with Elaine,
Mhm.
and they're all focusing on their studies. Um, because of Elaine's experience as wisdom and her age, the Emerald Seats decides to go ahead and just immediately elevate Nynaeve to the level of accepted. So, unlike Egwene and Elaine, who are still novices, Nynaeve is immediately promoted to the level of accepted.
Mhm.
So the three levels of the Aes Sedai, there is the novice, who are the initiates. They're the ones who are training how to use their powers properly. While they're in their time in the tower, they are used as like chambermaids, plumbers. They do all the hard work, the cleaning. Um, they act as the servants to the Aes Sedai, and all while learning, focusing on their lessons and learning the ropes of of being an Aes Sedai.
Mhm.
And then after a certain point, usually like on average, it takes a novice to
to move up to this next level. They spend like about 8 years on average as a novice before they are elevated to the next level, which is accepted. So the accepted, they no longer have to take on the role of the servant. They don't have to act as so much as servants anymore. They become more like some kind of like a form of administrator. So they'll act as assistants to the Aes Sedai for whatever they need, rather than just a servant. And they'll also assist with teaching the novices as well. And they're given more freedom to pursue their education as an Aes Sedai. So when you're an accepted, that's more of your time to learn and focus on your own skills and develop your skills at your own pace now. But you're also expected to begin figuring out which of the 7 Ajas do you wish to join. Now, of course, it's completely your choice, but it's hinted that the Aes Sedai will begin guiding you to your Aja. So, like, you show a higher affinity for healing, the yellow Aja would definitely start guiding you towards them. Even if you were thinking maybe of choosing another Aja, they'll be like, nope. There's a lot of networking involved, and eventually, once your time as an accepted is over, which again is on average 8 years, you'll be given a test, and if you pass this test, you'll be elevated to the role of a full Aes Sedai sister, and you'll join your Aja. Now, the ceremony for which one is moved from novice to accepted involves using the use of a large terangrial. I went over what enchanted artifacts were in the last episode. Just a quick recap: there are 3 types of enchanted artifacts. The most common are called terangrial. Now, terangrial are not made of quendiar. They're actually can be made of any substance, and for the most part, they're indestructible, or as indestructible as one can make it through a form of an enchantment. But the terangrial have specific purposes. They use the 1 power to perform a specific purpose, and the other 2 objects are called angrial and sa'angrial. Now, those are less common, and they are made of quendiar. Angrial are used by channelers to increase their power. It's not a permanent increase, it's more of like an arcane focus. If you channel through an angrial, it increases your capacity, so you're able to channel more energy from the source than you're naturally able to, increasing your power. So it's like a magnifying glass. Now, angrial tend to be smaller, and they give you a moderate amount of increase to your power, whereas a sa'angrial, which are less common than angrial, they allow you to draw on even more power from the source. So they're a lot more powerful. The sa'angrial are more powerful versions of an angrial. Now, we don't actually see any sa'angrial until book 3, so I won't really go into what they are like until later. But back to the terangrial, the Aes Sedai use a large terangrial in the form of these 3 archways. You do see these archways in the show, and basically what they do is they allow you to confront your fears. When you walk through them, you are presented with fears of your past, present, and future. So, and just like what you see in the show, when you enter it, you'll be put in through like an illusion that shows you what you've been fearing, what you currently fear, and what your fears are tomorrow. And they're very powerful illusions to the point where you're so caught up in it you forget why you're there, and you only have one opportunity to leave. So like the doorway you entered will reappear, but it'll only reappear once. And if you don't take it, you'll be trapped in that illusion. So they do this for Nynaeve. The one thing that they don't really talk about in the show is that, for one thing, the accepted ceremony is actually a bit of an ordeal. It isn't like something done like behind closed doors, like what happened in the show. And Leandrin's not the one who is in charge of it, like she was in the show. She was the one pushing for Nynaeve to become an accepted. Whereas in the books, Suan made that decision on her own, saying that because of Nynaeve's experience as a wisdom and her age, it's better to start her off as an accepted rather than a novice. And also because Nynaeve is the most powerful candidate that they've ever brought into the White Tower in like thousands of years. It's better to give her a little special treatment.
Yeah,
it's just that little privilege that they decided to give her. One thing, it is a whole ceremony. There's like at least half a dozen full sisters overseeing it, including the Mistress of Novices, Shiriam Sadai. She's the one that guides Nynaeve into the arches, while 3 sisters each are focusing on the power into the ter'angreal. Now, these sisters have to continuously channel into the arches in order to make them work. If that channeling is interrupted, then you will be permanently trapped in the illusion. You could vanish into vanish into oblivion.
That's nice.
Yep. So Nynaeve is stripped down to her shift, and she's guided into the first arch. Now, in the show, what she sees is when her parents were still alive and they were killed by bandits. That's not what she sees in the first arch in the book. What she sees in the first arch is actually Agenor, the Forsaken. And she's chased through a maze by Agenor. But at one point, she realizes how silly she is because she remembers that this is nothing more than an illusion. So she turns around and she's pissed off to the point where she could start channeling, and she starts attacking Agenor, and she overpowers him. Now, of course, since this is an illusion of Agenor, he's not actually at his full strength. So if she fought the real Agenor, she wouldn't be powerful enough to stop him. But she does overpower him, and just before she can strike him down, she realizes the doorway leading back into the real world is there, and she's like, oh, right, okay, I'm out. And then she leaves the first arch, and when she walks out, Shiriam immediately pours water over her, saying like ceremonial words like, you are washed of your sins and your fears, and return to us, blah, blah, blah. And immediately she takes Nynaeve to the second arch, and Nynaeve is like, can I have a break real quick? This is a little much. And Shiriam's like, once you have to follow through with it. You just got to keep going. And of course, if it becomes too much, an accepted can walk away from the arches without going through all 3 of them. And they're only given 3 opportunities. After that 3rd one, you're put out, and that's it. You're put out of the tower with enough money to get you by for the next year or 2, but that's it. So Nynaeve goes to the second arch, and what she sees in the second arch is pretty much the same thing she sees in the show. She's back at Eamon's Field, and there's a plague going on, but what they don't mention is that the wisdom that was called to replace Nynaeve, this wisdom is a real bitch. She's abusive, she's controlling, she disrespects the Women's Council, because the wisdom is technically the leader of the Women's Council, more or less, but still she has to respect the decisions of the Women's Council. And but this chick is abusive, and she terrorizes the people of her village, and that's, I guess you'd say, is what her fear is that since she abandoned Eamon's Field, there's nobody who's going to take care of her people the way she would, and and something like that. But eventually, she does see the archway, and she walks out, and the next archway she goes through takes her into an illusion of her fears of like I guess like her conflicting feelings concerning Lan.
Yeah.
And in this one, she does actually miss the doorway when it reappears, and but thing is that she doesn't live her full life like she does in the show.
Hmm.
She realizes something's off, and she starts channeling again, and she basically forces the ter'angreal to open up the doorway again. And she comes out, and when she comes out, she finds that all the sisters are there,
Yeah.
and they're all looking at her like what the fuck, because they know that she missed her deadline to come out.
Hmm.
But still, uh, the Amerlin seat is there, and she's looking at her curiously, like, looks like I made the right decision by you. And she gives Nynaeve
Hmm.
a ring, the Great Serpent Ring of the Aes Sedai. Now, when you become an accepted, you do get the ring, but you have to wear it on your left hand as an accepted. The Great Serpent Ring in the book looks nothing like the Great Serpent Ring in the show. In the show, it doesn't really look like a serpent coiled around itself and biting its own tail. It doesn't even look like a serpent at all, at least not what I notice. It just looks like a thick gold ring with a space to put like a large gem in it, and depending on what Aja you're a part of, that gemstone would
color.
reflect the color.
Yeah.
But no, in the show, it's not so much the ring that determines your place in the with the Aes Sedai and your Aja. It's actually a shawl that you wear. So when an Aes Sedai reaches the level of full sister, they move their Great Serpent Ring from their left hand to their right, and they're given a shawl. And the shawl, it's a fringed shawl in the color of the Aja they choose. So usually, when the Aes Sedai refer to themselves being raised to a full sister, they refer to it as being raised to the shawl, because the shawl is what in formal occasion is what really marks them as a full sister of the Aes Sedai. So, but right now, Nynaeve isn't. She passed the ceremony, and she's now an accepted. Thing about novices and accepted is that they do have to wear a uniform, more or less. Novices wear an all-white dress, while accepted, they do wear a white dress, but the hems of the dress have a rainbow strip on it, sewn onto the edge. So it's like it's not so much as like the traditional rainbow. This rainbow just has all the different colors of the Aja, of the different Ajas.
Hmm.
So Nynaeve's an accepted now, and she spends her next few months studying with Egwene and Elaine. But she's allowed to go at her own pace. Most of her teachers focus on helping her get over her block, which prevents her from channeling at will unless she's extremely angry.
Hmm.
But at one point, Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egwene are approached by Liandrin.
Mm.
And Liandrin tells them that their friends, Mat, Perrin, and Ran, are in trouble, and they're currently at Falm.
Hmm.
And they need to go with her if they want to help her. And thinking like, okay, well, Liandrin is a full-fledged Aes Sedai, and she doesn't lie, so we can trust her. So they ask her, wait, we can't leave the tower without permission. And Liandrin just immediately says, I already got permission. We can go. I'm like, okay. Full sisters can't lie. So they leave with Liandrin, and Liandrin takes them through a waygate. And the whole time they have no idea of what her intentions are. Unlike in the show, they immediately Liandrin kidnaps them basically and drags them to Falm, where she gives them over to the Shan. Yeah. But the same thing does happen. It's just that they don't know what she's actually intending to do, because they willingly follow her through the ways, and when they make it to Falm,
Mhm.
they find waiting for them outside of the Waygate is a squadron of Shan soldiers led by the High Lord Surah. And it's revealed, like, Leandrin approaches the High Lord. They exchange pleasantries, and she tells him, "All right, you can take them away." And immediately, waiting for them as well as a group of Soldan. Each of them have a dom ready to place on the girls. One of the Soldan immediately walks up to Egwene and collars her. But it's at that point that everyone's realizing, wait, hold on. Wee woo, wee woo, danger,
We
danger,
will.
danger, Will Robinson. So Nynaeve and Elaine actually do make a run for it, and Elaine and like Nynaeve gets pissed enough to where she starts channeling and she starts chucking fireballs at the Shan. They had a few other Demane there with them, so the Demane start firing back, but Elaine and Nynaeve do manage to get away. The High Lord looks at Leandrin and is like, "Great, now what am I supposed to do?" And Leandrin's like, "I don't know, figure it out." And she dips, goes back through the Waygate.
Figure it out.
And so, yes, unfortunately, Egwene does get collared and taken in by the Shan to be trained as a Damane, and her, to say the least, her time there is not pleasant. She does repeatedly try to escape and try to fight back, but with the Adam around her neck, she can't do shit. It's basically torture. She's tortured into doing what they want, and this whole ordeal is very traumatic for her. Nynaeve and Elaine do figure out a way to rescue Egwene. So unlike in the finale of season 2, Egwene does not actually take place in any fighting against the White Cloaks, who do attack Falm towards the end of the book. She's actually rescued by Nynaeve and Elaine. But before they do that, they do manage to capture a Damane and a Suldam. And Nynaeve figures out that there is a way to unlock the Adam, at least the collared portion around holding the Damane. And she tests this theory when they're during one of the patrols of Suldam and Damane. So so Elaine and Nynaeve hide themselves, keep themselves just out of sight from a passerby, Suldam and Damane, and using a weave of spirit, and I believe she does use earth too. Nynaeve like kind of pokes at the collar with a weave of spirit, and the collar chops off of the Damane. And when this happens, both the Damane and the Suldam are just shocked, like, what just happened? Because that's never happened before in their history. No one has ever been able to unlock an Adam. But that's because there's never been a free channeler who was smart enough to do that. So,
I like the show.
But this is hilarious because this Damane just so happened to be a Westlands girl. She wasn't one of the Damane from Shan. Because those Damane are completely obedient. They've spent their entire lives being groomed and trained. So they're completely obedient. But this girl was definitely from the Westlands, because as soon as she realized that the collar was off of her, she turns around, punches her Suldam in the face, knocking, and just books it. Before the Suldam can like recover herself, Nynaeve and Elaine immediately capture her and immediately take her captive, and they interrogate her. And the Suldam doesn't really like she doesn't cooperate at first, but just from observing the Adam, Nynaeve realizes something. Nynaeve and Elaine realize something, so they put the collar on the Suldam. And this shocks the soul down because if you put the collar around a person who can't channel, it won't activate.
Mm-hmm. But it
It won't work.
activates.
But it activates and it locks itself onto her. And the soul dom's like, wait, what the fuck? And Nynaeve is like, all right. The girls are like, all right, that confirms it. You're a channeler. That's why the Adam only works for soul dom. Because only a soul dom can use the Adam, and the Adam can only chain a channeler.
Yeah.
So that's why the soul dom, they are channelers, but they're very weak in the power. They're too weak to actually be considered like enough of a threat to be collared.
Yeah.
But they're just strong enough to use an Adam. So that's how an Adam works. In order for it to work on another channeler, you need a channeler to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So Nynaeve puts the bracelet on, and she thinks back to all the times that she was sent to Shiriam's office to be punished, and she thinks of some of the particularly nasty punishments, and she inflicts that pain onto the Soldom, and the Soldom immediately is like, oh fuck, that hurts. And she does this and basically tortures the Soldom into telling them everything they want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And they manage to get a disguise for themselves, and they sneak into Nynaeve and Elaine sneak into the compound where the Damane are being held, and they force their Soldom to take them to the room that Egwene is being held in.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they release Egwene, and they leave the Soldom that they have collared there. But before they leave, the Soldom that was training Egwene comes in, and Egwene immediately grabs that pot of water that that Soldom was forcing her to pour water for,
Mm-hmm.
and bashes it on her head.
Get it.
It was hilarious, but unfortunately, Egwene doesn't kill the Soldom like she does in the show, which was so satisfying, by the way.
Yes, it was. So sad. Good.
Instead, she ends up taking the Adam that was used on Egwene, and she collars that Soldom, and she forces that Soldom to experience all of the pain that she had experienced, and then she just leaves the two of them there, and the two Soldom are like, wait, no, don't leave us here. If the others find us, we'll be shamed, blah blah blah. And the girls are all like, so, and they leave.
Yeah.
It's at this point that other things begin to happen. So this is where things are starting to pick up in the story. So Rand's group make it into the city. They actually do raid the High Lord Surat's mansion. Not Surat's, I'm sorry, the High Lord Surat's mansion. And they do manage to steal the Horn of the Lear from Turak. And Rand actually does end up fighting Turok.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, Turok is a blade master. He has a heron marked blade, and the two of them do fight. And Rand almost loses, but he remembers his lessons that he received from his father. So one of the things his father taught him was to do something called entering the void.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically centering yourself and not so much as pushing aside or suppressing your emotions, but setting them aside and entering a state of just a void. Yeah. And by doing this, you're able to focus more on it allows you to focus your senses and everything, right? And this was something that Rand was struggling to do. His sword skills have actually improved a lot over the course of this book, especially after his short time training with Lan. So he actually manages to defeat the High Lord's Turok and kill him. Mm-hmm. He does get some small. He does sustain some small injuries from his fight, but he escapes with Matt and Perrin. Matt manages to get his dagger back, and they don't encounter Pat and Thane because during the fight, he just books it. His Trolloc forces were unfortunately killed. Well, not unfortunately, but were killed by the Shan, and his dark friends were scattered. So, Pat and Fane, they miss Pat and Fane, but they do manage to get the Horn of Valyr back. And when they escape with the Shinerans, they realize that they're actually pinned between two separate forces. The Shan, which are currently marching out of the city to face another threat, and that is in the form of the White Cloaks. So the White Cloaks had learned that there was an invasion going on from like a foreign army, so they send their own forces to try to take back Falm. Because the thing about the White Cloaks is that they're problematic. I've established that in the last episode. Yeah. They're basically like the KKK and the Nazis rolled up in one.
Yeah.
Except they're extreme they're witch hunters, and they hunt for dark friends, but all they really succeed in doing is sowing mistrust and division among people that they try to help. And they thought, well, if we can, their thought process was, if we can free Falm from this invading forces, the nobility of Falm would be so grateful that they would allow the White Cloaks to set up permanent residence there. But they end up losing anyway, because the Shan are too powerful, especially with the Damane. But in all the chaos, the Shan do end up getting driven out of Falm, because when Rand and his friends realize that they're pinned between a rock and a hard place, they decide to use the Horn of Valyr. So Matt, he takes the horn and he blows it, and he summons the spirit of 100 heroes of legend. And these spirits immediately attack the Shan and the White Cloaks, driving them both out of the city. And when they Rand, Matt, and Perrin do lead the charge with these spirits, but as they're charging the city, Rand actually gets pulled into sort of like this ethereal plane. He physically gets pulled into like this ethereal plane, which he later learns that when he gets pulled into this plane, people can actually see him floating above the city, like a image of him, like an enlarged image floating above the city. And
weird.
He immediately is confronted by Balsamon, aka Istamel, and the two of them do fight, and Rand does mortally wound Ishamel, but he doesn't kill him. And Ishamel does stab Rand with he has like this black staff with like a jagged tip, and when he stabs Rand, it does inflict a wound that even till book 7 does not fully heal.
Oh, you're talking about that wound that's like black and shit from the show?
So in the show, he gets that wound when Matt accidentally throws the spear with the dagger on it. Because not accidentally, he does get stabbed accidentally by Matt when Matt tries to stab Ishamel, but Ishamel was an illusion then. But in the book, Rand, Ishamel's the one who gives Rand that wound. But Rand does manage to inflict an even more deadly wound on Ishamel, forcing him to retreat. But their entire battle is seen by everyone, because when Ishamel pulls him into, like, I guess he kind of pulls him halfway into the dream world. And the thing is, though, is like their battle can be seen above the city, like an enlarged image above the city. So this scene actually fulfills the next part of the prophecies of the Dragon Reborn, and this, like, there will be he'll strike down the Dark One in the skies above Falm or Tillman's Head or something like that. And another part of the prophecy is that his banner, the dragon's banner, will be flown over the city, and that does happen. Varen has his banner flown above the city because they did find the banner of Luce Theron Talamon at the Eye of the World, and Ren had kept it with him, but he had hidden it in his saddlebags. But they do fly the banner over the city, and this fulfills the next part of the prophecies. In the aftermath of the battle, the Shan do flee from the city. They do find that Moraine was there in the city. She showed up because she had heard that one of her sisters was in danger and she needed help.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Moraine was not able to save this sister because she was collared and taken by the Shan when they fled. So, unfortunately, they did a lot of the Damane that were collared, that were captured, were taken, and they weren't able to free those girls. But they did manage to free Egwene. And in fact, when Egwene was escaping, when they escaped with Egwene, they were going to try to escape from the city in secret.
Yeah.
But the thing is that as they were making their way out of the city, that was when the Shan forces were marching out of it to confront the White Cloaks. The thing is, though, the Shan didn't know that Egwene had escaped, but she freaked out because she didn't want to. She was like, "I will never be collared again," and she immediately starts attacking the Shan with her power. But this forces them all to flee because the Damane, the Shan, the Soldan, along with their Damane, immediately hone in on Egwene and the other girls and start attacking them with their Damane. And Nynaeve ends up this pisses off Nynaeve enough to where she starts channeling and she starts lobbing fireballs left and right. So this leads to a back and forth battle with the Shan and the Damane.
Mm-hmm.
But the girls do manage to escape, and this is pretty much where the book ends. One thing they didn't realize was that Min was also in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And hang on a sec. How did she get there? I think Min had showed up. Oh, that's right. I totally forgot, honestly. But so Min was the character introduced in book 1 who has the ability to see the future. Like she can actually see glimpses of the pattern around people, like potential futures and things like that. And after they meet her, they had actually met Min in a tavern in the city of Berlin pretty early on. When they meet her, Moraine actually knew of Min and her talents for a while, but because of the circumstances, Moraine felt that Min would be in danger. So she sends Min to the White Tower, not only to deliver a message, but to protect her.
Mm-hmm.
But when the girls head to Falm with Leandrin, Min goes with them. And she, of course, escapes with Nynaeve and Elaine. And after the battle, when Rand is badly wounded by Shamel, she does find Rand and she helps nurse him back to health until Varen and another Aes Sedai can come and heal him. And while she's looking over him, she is found by Selene, of all people. And Selene tells her, better take good care of him because I will be returning for him eventually. And Min is immediately sussed out by this chick because she can't really get a read on her. And she's like, "Who are you?" And Selene looks at her and says, "My name is Lanfear, child."
Bum, bum, bum.
Dun, dun. Yeah, so that's when we actually learn that Selene is Lanfear, and and sadly we don't see Lanfear go on a rampage, at least like she does in season 2, where she goes on a rampage through the foregate of Caerhine, and where she also lays out Suon. But still, this is more or less what Lanfear is like. She's not so much like Moghedien, who like sticks to the shadows and strikes only when she has the advantage. Um, she is a schemer and she is a hardcore manipulator. So she has schemes upon schemes. She will manipulate people, just like she was trying to do with Rand, and like she was trying to do with several other people. After Lanfear introduces herself to Min, she vanishes into thin air, and Rand proclaims himself as the Dragon Reborn. But he really doesn't have much of a choice, because Moraine and Varen tell him that this is part of the prophecy. You fulfilled another part of the prophecy, and that is, the whole image of you over the sky and your banners flying over this. Like, the only part that you still need to fulfill is to raise your banner over the city. And Rand still wants to just leave. He doesn't really want to be the Dragon Reborn, and he still doesn't really think he is the Dragon Reborn. But Moraine and Varen put some things into perspective for him, especially like now that his face was literally in the sky. Hundreds, like thousands of people saw him.
Yeah.
So whether he likes it or not, people are going to be calling him the Dragon Reborn. So you can either run from it, or you can roll with it. And without much choice, Rand rolls with it, and he raises his banner over the city. And that's pretty much where this book ends, is with the dragon banner flying over the city of Palm. Yay! And that is the end of Book 2 of the Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt. It ends with Rand officially proclaiming himself, well, semi-officially proclaiming himself as the Dragon Reborn. He's reunited with his friends, friends Egwene, Elaine, and Nynaeve. And it's funny because he had actually met Elaine back in Camelin, but when he tells his other friends that, oh, I met the Princess of Andor, they didn't believe him. They're all like, oh, you're full of shit. Then when they are reunited and Elaine and Rand recognize each other and say, oh, hey, what's up? Everyone else is like, wait, you do actually know him? Like, you did actually meet the princess? Yes. So there's that. And of course, Matt has his dagger back, but his time is running short because his life force is slowly being drained away by the dagger. So they need to really get him to Tarvalon so the sisters the Aes Sedai can heal him. This pretty much leads up into Book 3. So just to kind of set the premise for Book 3, after the events of Falm, Moraine, Rand, Perrin, and the Shienarans all travel into a nearby mountain range, which is actually a very mountain range that on the other side of it is Eamon's Field. So he's not very. So where they end up is not very far from his home. Since winter is coming, they decide to set up camp and hold down and shelter themselves in the mountains for the duration of this upcoming winter. Matt, Egwene, Nynaeve, Elaine, and Varen begin making their way back to Tarvalon. Sadly, the girls do have to face some form of punishment because they technically left the tower without permission, but they do hold to their story that Liandrin was the one who tricked them. Yeah. And over the winter, Moraine is gathering support for Rand, and she is communicating with her spy network and things like that. But even though the entire time that they're hiding in the mountains, Rand still isn't convinced that he is the Dragon Reborn, and he and Moraine are butting heads the entire time. She is firm in her conviction that he is the Dragon Reborn, while he's like, I just don't buy it. It's still not enough. And he actually begins studying the prophecies of the Dragon Reborn. Like he begins reviewing what he knows about them, and there is one thing that will for sure convince him that he is the Dragon Reborn, and that is he needs to claim the sword that cannot be touched, a sword that is currently sealed away in a fortress called the Stone of Tyr, which has been known, which was a fortress built at the end of the Age of Legends, and it was built by the ancient Aes Sedai, and it is famed for never being able to be fallen. So it has never fallen in its entire history. No army has ever been able to take it. And the sword that cannot be touched is actually a sangreal called Kalandor. So Ren becomes convinced that the only way to prove that he's the Dragon Reborn is to claim that sword.
Yeah, he wants it in his hand.
Mm-hmm. And that is going to be the plot of Book 3 of the Wheel of Time, The Dragon Reborn. That is the name, The Dragon Reborn.
Dragon Reborn, yay!
Mm-hmm. So that is it for Book 2.
Yep.
There is, of course, as always, there are some details that I left out because, of course, if you want to read these books, go read them. There's still a lot that we haven't covered. I just covered the more important parts of the story. There may be a few things I'll remember later on that's like, oh, wait, that was important, but it won't become important until later on. What I was telling Devin earlier before we actually started on Book 2 was that at the end of Season 2 of The Wheel of Time, Lanfear has an encounter with another of the Forsaken, and this Forsaken is named Moghedien. Now, Moghedien doesn't actually appear in the books until Book 4. She is mentioned a couple times in, like, I think she's first mentioned by Lanfear in Book 2, and she's mentioned maybe like one or two more times in Book 3. But she doesn't actually make an appearance until Book 4, which is I'm forgetting the names. Wow, I forgot the name of Book 4. I'm stupid. Cut that part out. Por favor. I know the name. I'm sorry. I'm reading a 14-book novel.
Novel series.
The Shadow Rising. So she doesn't appear. So Moghedien doesn't actually make an appearance until Book 4, The Shadow Rising. And I will tell you this: they make her off to be like this really like badass and insane character, at least from just that small encounter with Lanfear. Because like the fact that she was able to like shield Lanfear and restrain her, it's supposed to make her off to be like this really like like somehow worse than Lanfear. Moghedien is actually the weakest of the Forsaken. And Lanfear is on a similar level to a Shamel, and a Shamel is the most powerful of the Forsaken. So don't let her appearance fool you. She's a coward. She's the weakest of them all, and she'll only ever strike if she knows she has the advantage.
That sounds about right.
Because when you think about it, like she was ready to restrain Lanfear as soon as she walked in the door. She already laid a trap. Yeah. So, anyway, that is it for Book 2 of The Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt. I hope you guys can join us next week. We will go ahead and review Book 3 of The Wheel of Time, The Dragon Reborn.
Yes.
And I will say The Dragon Reborn is a really exciting book because this is when Rand actually accepts that he is the true Dragon Reborn, and it sets the stage for so many other future conflicts. We actually do see another of the Forsaken. I won't tell you who just yet, because he actually doesn't the identity of this particular Forsaken isn't revealed until near the end of book 3. And a couple of the other Forsaken do get introduced more or less, rather their names are mentioned.
Mhm.
But and either way, it's exciting. Moraine does come back, and she has more of a larger role in this book than she did in book 2.
Mhm.
But overall, it's exciting. Can't wait. And until then,
Peace
next time.
out.
Bye, guys.